All right, in 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. And welcome back to another Integrated Interventions podcast. I'm your host, Patrick Dundas. I'm the Director of Education. And alongside me today is owner Terry Edelmann. Terry, I'm glad you could join us.
Yeah, no, this is great. Always fun to sit down and talk with you. So I'm sure you'll have things that you'll ask that'll make me think. So go ahead.
Well, and with this topic today, there's definitely is some thinking, but it's a topic that you're well versed in, and that's the concept of purpose. And when we're talking about purpose in relation to our students, I would just want to talk about why is purpose important, and why can finding purpose be a difficult thing for some of our students?
Yeah, that's good questions. I think that, when you look at spiral dynamics and the way that we measure progress with our students and on individual lines and levels where they're functioning at any given time of, day or night, and any given project that they might be on, whether it's education or, a hands-on project. We measure that for us, that kind of graduating, that level of functioning where we're like, okay, now they're ready for life. Now they're able to launch and then be successful. And not just exist, but have a drive. And so we look at that level 5, that color name of orange, where you have your purpose driven, where you have internalized goals, that you're self-marketing, that you're creating value of yourself and trying to be achievement-based, right? So now you're looking at your education as a way to be more marketable. Now you're looking at, going to work early and leaving late so that you can achieve recognition, so that you can get a raise. You do this job so that you'll be able to market yourself for the next job. All that is purpose-driven. Trying to get to a point of purpose is difficult for most of our students. I think generationally, some of the things that have changed, is some generations were starting at a very young age. You had a purpose of providing for your family. You're a farmer. At a very young age, you have chores and you're up and you're busy and you're doing things. And then later on, maybe you're part of a family that, has family goals of doing things together and projects together and vacation together and hikes or fishing or whatever that looks like. But you have a sense of purpose. And most of our students don't really have a sense of purpose. And you can see that in their attitude about why. Why should I do that? Why should I ever learn how to use a mop? There's no point in my life where I'll ever have to use a mop. Why do I need to get up and learn how to work? We have money. My family has money. I don't have to have a job. I was forced to come here. So why would I participate in this? I was forced to come here. My parents paid for this, so I don't really need to do anything, and everything's paid for. It's your job to take care of me. It's your job to provide for me. And you see that across the board. It's magical thinking, but it's also cultural magical thinking. We have generations of people that don't feel like they really need to work. Things should be provided for them. When you look at that with our students, as they come into our program, one of the first things that we do is we're going to give them a blank menu. And we have some very simple assignments, like being able to put together meal plans. Well, for most people, that's very simple. For our students, they've never had to do that before. Just the simple thing of sitting down and writing out a meal schedule for a week seems not only challenging, but a little bit preposterous, because it's always been provided for them. They haven't had to do for themselves. So there is no sense of individuality. There is no sense of accomplishment because things are done for them. So immediately coming to our program, we're setting our students up to be able to feel a sense of accomplishment. Here's an assignment. Now you've completed that. High five. Now there's another assignment that comes along with that. Now you've completed a meal plan, but now we have to have a shopping meal. We have to have a shopping list. So now we're going to do a shopping list that's based on that meal plan so that you can see that they're structurally together. And then now we're going to go shopping. And as we shop from one side of the store to another side of the store instead of running around in circles and having it take 2 or 3 hours. And again, it's purpose driven. There's a reason that we're doing it. There's a reason that we have it done in order, and it's establishing this structure, right? And then in that structure, we're helping people recognize that by having a structure, then you can accomplish goals. And then by accomplishing those goals, those things feel good. And by accomplishing goals and feeling good, you feel better about yourself. And that gives you a purpose, right? If the purpose is nothing other than just feeling better, then we can attach to those things. And then that gives us the grounds to then build on that. So it feels better to accomplish these things. Now we can create larger tasks to accomplish. And by creating larger tasks, it takes more discipline and there's more structure involved. And then by accomplishing that larger task and that more discipline and the longer schedule, then we continue to elevate that person and build that person up so that they have meaning in their life. And then that then can be applied to a work schedule. And then that can be applied to an education schedule. And that could be applied to career development. But all of it comes back to if they're not self-driven, they're not going to accomplish it.
What role does finding purpose play when it comes to healing and recovery, which is an important part of the journey for our students in integrated interventions?
Yeah, I think one of the first things that comes to mind is moving away from the culture or the environment that a person was in. Right? How did we end up with an individual that is in the emotional or mental state that they're in currently? And how do we move them away from that? Again, we talked about finding purpose. If it's sobriety, having purpose helps you maintain sobriety. If you don't have a purpose, it's easy to drown yourself in whatever, or self-medicate for whatever reason, or to avoid, dealing with trauma. It's easier to self-medicate and drown yourself in this kind of stuff, right? So to have a purpose to exist, a lot of times you'll find people they'll gain sobriety because they found a reason to help others. We see that in any care field, any kind of social work, recovery, psychiatric therapy, counseling. Almost all of that is because people have a calling to help somebody else, right? Now you have a purpose, so then you have a mission. And if you have a purpose and then you have a mission, then the things that come along with a mission is being able to accomplish it. So, that might require physical fitness goals. It might require nutrition goals. It might require education goals. It might require financial stability, or maybe it's further than you can walk to get to work. So now you need a bicycle. So now you earn the money and hold on to the money and save the money because you have a purpose to get a bicycle. And then from there, you need a car. Right? One of the greatest videos that you could ever watch on purpose, on how to follow a trajectory of a simple plan, is that, or what's it called, red paperclip. You guys have seen that, right? Where the guy's got a red paperclip and he's going to turn it into a home, right? And all the trade-ups that he does and the hustling he does to make that happen. He clearly had a goal in mind and he had a purpose and he was able to accomplish those things. So it's not outside the scope to think that teaching a person some basic values of being proud of what you accomplished and then being able to apply that daily to a schedule gives you a certain sense of worth. And that's what gets you through the first day or the first 3 days or the first week. And then once you're able to accomplish each one of those steps, the recognition that you get for that positive growth, again, you internalize that. It's not a cookie. It's not necessarily a financial reward in the beginning. It's just a recognition that, hey, you did it. And then you being able to accept that, hey, I did this on my own and it feels good. And then you'll continue to do that. It's also a path of least resistance, being, instead of fighting the man and fighting the system and pushing back. It's one of the unique things about our program is that we don't really have consequences. There's not really anything to push back against. If you don't like your calendar, well, you're the one that made it. If you don't like the job you're doing, then why don't we change jobs? If you don't like where you have your therapy, then talk to your therapist and do it a different way. Then you find that there's not really anything to fight. When you don't have something to fight, then you fall into a path of least resistance of perpetual forward motion and trajectory kind of like we were talking a little bit ago about arrows and archery, right? So trajectory and inertia is that, definition of inertia is something once in motion to stay in motion. So we have the same thing with our students. Once they start to move through lines and levels of development and they get to a place where they're structurally following direction, then they have purpose, and it's measurable purpose. I did this, I have this on my calendar, and then I was able to accomplish that, and then I can recognize that I accomplished it, which again gives me a sense of purpose to do it again tomorrow. It's not about outside rewards, it's not about cookies, and it's surely not about parents, right? So one of the best things that we can do with our students is help them and parents separate so that we have an appropriate young adult parent relationship. And that's a difficult thing for parents to do. They're used to being the case managers. They're used to being the protector. They're used to being the person that, has the most experience. They have the most insight because it's their kid. And then they're handing this individual off to a group of people that with combined experience have hundreds of years of experience more than the parents do. And way, way more personality interested. That we've worked with so many different students that have similar issues. So it's easy for us to draw from a whole, card file of all these different experiences and how they applied and what we did to help that person, right? And so getting parents to step back and let young adults become independent young adults and have their own sense of purpose instead of an applied sense of purpose that comes from the parents of, this is my expectation and you need to meet my expectation. Having that, letting a person become their own individual character and take some risk and letting them step out and fall on their own face and get hurt and take risks that are measurable, right? Do things that seem dangerous, but with a safety net. That's how individuals are able to find themselves. And in finding themselves, they can start to create a sense of purpose that has to do with their individual character and not a sense of purpose that's applied to them culturally, right? You want people to do things that are appropriate, that are meaningful because they feel that they're appropriate and meaningful, not because they're being told that they're appropriate and meaningful.
Well, and they're able to develop and explore what purpose means, especially with integrated interventions being a community-based program. There are a lot of opportunities out there for them to define what purpose looks like for them outside of the realm of the parents. Because, that can be a scary thing as a parent, knowing that your kid could potentially fail or not do something and that could maybe lend to them not having high self-esteem or, the things that are associated with that. Can you speak to the importance of community-based programs like ourselves and how that relates to fulfilling purpose?
Yeah, one of the first things I think when I think about taking risk as a parent is, I guess you don't really see it very often anymore. You drive through neighborhoods and you don't see kids outside on a bicycle making homemade jumps. When I was a kid, the first thing you did with any piece of wood was try to jump over it on a bicycle or turn it into a ramp. And parents everywhere were like, hey, stop, you're going to break your arm. We didn't have helmets. Now you need a helmet to do these things, which is a good measure, right? But it's letting people do things that there is risk involved in. So I think as a kid, we had kids that weren't allowed to jump their bicycle or jump their skateboard. And it just seemed like later in life they were less aggressive, they were less motivated. It doesn't mean that they don't have belonging, they don't have meaning, and they're not going to find a tribe. It's just a noticeable difference between the people that are allowed to take risks, the people that are allowed to fail and that learn from that, and the ones that are protected and not necessarily coddled, but that could be part of it, not necessarily overindulged, but that clearly is a part of it at times. I think that what we see in a community-based program is we're allowing the student to walk out the door and be in the public and have scrutiny from the public at a level of scrutiny that would come from any area in the public, whether that's you're employed and you're going to shoplift and there's natural consequences involved. Then we're not going to protect you from that, because that's what happens when you shoplift. You have natural consequences. And then you have parents that are like, yeah, I don't want them to have that job because they're going to get in trouble. Well, at what point do you think they're not going to get in trouble? When they're 30? When they're 40? Like, at what point is it safe to let them? And how are you measuring that? How do you know? So I think it's important we take a look at the risk. We had a parent one time that we said, the student had earned the opportunity to have community-based employment. And the parent said, well, but she's going to drink. Well, yeah, that's what 20-something-year-old people do. Sometimes they drink, but she's going to get drunk. Probably because she's never really had an experience of drinking, and so she will probably get drunk at some point. Well, we need to protect her from that. Well, for how long? She's not an alcoholic. She's not here for alcoholism. She's here because she's doesn't fit well in the community and doesn't understand, doesn't have, boundaries, and doesn't have, the ability to throw up a stop sign in front of her mind and make her not do things that she shouldn't be doing. But how are you going to teach somebody that if you don't take the risk, if you don't lend them the opportunity to make the mistake and then be there to support them and catch them as they fall? How are you ever going to have a chance to build out that character? Right? That's all character building. How are they going to have the opportunity to learn that these are things that everybody does? Everybody's had these things. They fall on their face. You still got to get up and you got to get going. You don't get picked up and then put back in the car and then let somebody else do your work for you. So that interaction of being able to have the opportunity to make those mistakes, being able to have a support system in place to help you deal with those mistakes, catch you, elevate you as you're functioning at a higher level and you fall backwards and you regress, be there to support you and say, it's okay. We're going to pick you up right where you're at. And we're going to move back up that lines and levels of development, try to get you back to functioning at a higher level. All of those things come with a community-based program. Those opportunities for risk and failure. I can lock you up in a building. I can put you on a campus somewhere and protect you from all that. And then at some point, you're going to leave there and then you're going to still face all those same issues. So the opportunity to have you do that with a support system, real life, real time, in the moment, and people there to help you support that. Again, that gives you a sense of independence. And that sense of independence is what most of our students are lacking severely. And that sense of independence is what gets you a sense of self-worth and maturity and character building, all of which gives you purpose. I'm an individual and I want to accomplish these things, and I have the ability to do that, and I don't need you to hold my hand.
Purpose is one of those topics that is more long-ranging that you realize initially when you bring it up. Because I was thinking, we can be out the door in a half hour, but it's not going to work out that way this time, because as we really dive into these questions, you start realizing the scope that is involved when it comes to the concept of purpose. So a topic that we'll explore in a part 2. But I appreciate you taking the time, Terry, to talk about purpose, because it's an important topic and one of those that really lands for what we do here at Integrated Interventions.
Yeah, no, I appreciate the opportunity.
Well, once again, an Integrated Interventions podcast, Terry Edelmann joining us today, co-owner, and there's going to be a lot more in store for us as we move forward to part 2, talking about purpose. But in the meantime, make sure to like, subscribe, all the things when it comes to our social media. For another Integrated Interventions podcast, I'm your host, Patrick Dundas. We'll see you next time.